got 7.
Thank you. I'd like to call the special meeting, or the regular meeting of the town council for tonight's budget hearing, and I'm going to ask Councilor Bailey to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In a few minutes, we are going to start our budget hearing. We're going to hear from the superintendent and from the town manager, and then we'll have time for... Call the roll. Oh, sorry, see, I'm already making a mistake. So we have to call the roll again. Sue?
Counselor Bailey?
Here.
Counselor Carbone? Here. Counselor Clancy?
Here.
Counselor Durick?
Here.
Counselor Rhodes?
Here.
Counselor Timbrow?
Here.
Counselor Zambrello? Here. Deputy Mayor Forrest?
Here.
And Mayor Lesser?
Here. And thank you. Apologize for that. So I started to say in a few minutes we'll have a presentation from the superintendent of schools on the education budget, and we'll also have a presentation from our town manager on the town budget. But before that, we have a special thing to do, and that is we have the second in our series of kid mayor presentations. We are very excited tonight to welcome our kid mayor from Highcrest School, Juliana Ratti, who's going to come up here, who's going to sit in my seat, read her essay. I'm going to stand behind her, and then we'll take a photo with the whole council. So, Juliana, I have a pillow, which you want me to take at home to be able to see you on TV. Thank you, Joe. I don't know if you can. You go ahead. You're going to be behind me.
Get comfortable, though.
Yeah.
Take your time. We're in no rush here.
You'll do a much better job than me.
I moved to Wethersfield from Boston when I was a baby, and I am so happy my parents chose to move here. I love the town and community, and have made many great friends throughout the years. However, just like anything else or any other places, I feel there are improvements that can be made. I should be the kid mayor of Wethersfield because of my leadership skills and my kindness to everyone, no matter who they are. I show leadership on the soccer field and basketball court, along with being a role model at school. I am very willing to be cooperative and work with anyone in our community to help tackle problems. Additionally, my ability to clearly and effectively communicate with others, plus my resilience and determination, will make me a very effective leader and mayor in the town of Wethersfield. I love speaking in public and inspiring people with my words, and I truly hope that I can make a positive impact on someone's life. I want to be mayor because of the many great ideas that I have and want to share with you. I sincerely believe everyone in the town of Wethersfield will benefit from them and that they will be of assistance. I believe that everyone should be treated equally and with the same amount of respect and appreciation. This is very important to many people, especially as they get older. As people get older, they can tend to feel lonely or unappreciated. That is why I believe that something that could really help out our town is bridging young students with older adults at the Wethersfield Senior Center. In the town of Wethersfield, the majority of our population is either older people or younger families with kids still in elementary school. That is why connecting younger students in our town to the older seniors can be so effective in such a positive way. Students can simply send letters to the seniors on different holidays, including Christmas, Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, and so much more. Just sending these letters can make someone's entire day. They will make the letters during class and then have a parent drop them off at the senior center. Every student would make one card so that there would be enough for each senior. This kind gesture can go such a long way in making people feel like they belong. Furthermore, we can take a step further by organizing field trips to the Wethersfield Senior Center. Students in elementary school can come for just 1 or 2 days of the year, and it would be an incredible experience for both the students and the seniors. Students like me can learn so many important lessons from these people who have been in the world longer and have experienced so many more things. To add on to this, just think about how bored those seniors can get just sitting around all day. If we came in to play games, interview different seniors, or just talk to them for a little while, it could lighten up their whole week and make them that much happier. I have many great ideas that Wethersfield can benefit from, and I believe that with my leadership, empathy, and integrity, we can make them happen. I want to make this town the best it can possibly be, and I think that this little change in our community can can help in taking a step to achieve that.
I'm going to go sit down and let Juliana run the meeting, because that was amazing, Juliana. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Why don't we take a photo? If you guys, if the counselors can kind of squeeze in here next to Juliana.
We stay seated there.
You can, I guess, because you're close, but Shelley, Jane, Cindy, if you guys.
The manager got up, so.
Everyone,
Come to blue. I'm sorry.
can you guys get all of us, and most importantly, Juliana?
Yes, everyone is in it. Let's get it in it. And we'll take a couple. Everyone say cheese.
Cheese.
1, 2, 3. 2, 3. 3. All right, I got 3. They're all good.
Thank you, Matt. You got
Yeah?
Juliana, oh, keep going. Future kid mayor, right there. Juliana, thank you so much. Great job.
Good job.
I want to thank Joe for the idea of the pillow. It's not for me to sleep while some of you guys are talking. It's for, so everyone could see Juliana, and you did a great job. Represent your school and your town amazingly well. And we have a few more kid mayors, 3 more to go, and we have some fun things planned for our kid mayors, and part of it is to teach them about civics and democracy and local government. And that was a fabulous, fabulous speech. Well done. So moving on is now we're moving to the presentation part, and up first is our superintendent of schools, Michael Emmett. So Michael?
Thank you, Mayor Lesser. Good evening, everyone. Very pleased to be with you this evening to share again the board-approved budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. We'll get right to the numbers. For 24-25, the Board of Education is requesting a budget of $65,884,270. This is an increase of $4,021,104, a percentage increase of 6.5% over the current operating budget. Just to give you a little bit of background as to our process, we began in earnest prior to the start of the new year to build the budget. We started with multiple budget workshops where we had Board of Education members, we had administrators, and we had members of Town Council attending to go through the budget line by line. When we met on February 3rd, the superintendent's proposed budget increase was at 6.45%, or just shy of $4 million increase. And again, on February 10th, the budget workshop that we had on that particular Saturday, the budget was revised due to the following. And this was the result of proposed changes to Governor Lamont's operating budget for the second year of the biennial. There's a magnet tuition cap that was removed from the state budget. We had budgeted a 58% cap. At this point in time, the governor's proposed budget change eliminates that cap. Thus, we added in $414,000 back into the proposed budget. And the other piece that changed this year was the excess cost reimbursement. We anticipated from the state a reimbursement rate of 88%. We got a reimbursement rate of 70.5%. That's a delta of $378,000. So we revised the budget to reflect these two changes, and the budget came in at 7.73%, or $4,785,044. The Board of Education tasked us with identifying $763,000 in reductions for the final 6.5% proposal. Again, one of the things that we looked to support was additional mental health support. That has been an ongoing issue that we have faced over the course of the emergence of the pandemic. We've seen more mental health issues than ever before. Currently, in our grant funds, over the course of the past 3 years, we've utilized Effective School Solutions in a contract to provide additional mental health support in our schools across the elementary level. That funding will be ending with the grant funds drying up. So we had in the budget an additional social worker to take care of some of that loss and that reduction. That is currently not in the operating budget. We also removed the addition of a preschool section. This was including a new preschool teacher, a new preschool speech position, and 3 new preschool paraeducators. This was in response to the state changing the enrollment age for kindergarten. We have multiple students that will no longer be eligible for kindergarten in the upcoming year based upon the fact that they have a birthday after September 1st. And in addition to that, we are also looking at the elimination of all of our current math interventionist positions across the district. These were grant-funded positions. We had hoped to carry these in our operating budget for the upcoming year. At this time, it is not carried in the budget. In terms of the increase by major object, as is the case every year, the bulk of our increases are really based upon salaries and personal services, meaning benefits. Right now, at this point in time, we are carrying a 12% increase on health insurance for the upcoming year. We'll also mention the other purchase services. That large increase is reflective of the excess cost as well as the tuition, magnet tuition. Just to show you historical budgets over the course of the past 10 years, we have ebbed and flowed. We had some years where we were under 1%. We've had other years where we're between 3 and 4%. Certainly, this is the largest budget increase during my time as superintendent in the district. I want to talk a little bit about the needs within our students, our student population. With the number of English language learners, EL, free and reduced lunch eligible students, and students with an individualized education plan eligible for special education services. You can see over the course of the past decade, we have seen a pretty significant increase. So for example, with regard to English language learners, we are just shy of 400 now in the district. And 10 years ago, we were just a shade over 100. So we've seen a pretty significant increase. We've also seen a significant increase in the number of students eligible for special education services, with the prevalence rate now topping just shy of 16% in the district. So talking about the salaries are increasing 3.84%. Again, this represents almost 39% of the total budget increase. Teacher salaries are increasing 4.18%. And again, this also takes into account the elimination of the 7 math interventionist positions. And again, what will happen there is they will likely bump with union contracts, they will bump lower senior staff members. In terms of benefits, we're looking at an increase overall of 5.74%. This is almost 16% of the total budget increase. Again, we are currently projecting a health insurance premium increase of 12%. And again, we're waiting word on pension and OPEB contributions. We expect to get that prior to the May 15th deadline. Other budget factors to consider here, purchase services. As I mentioned, we're talking about the excess cost for our special education students, as well as magnet school tuition cap adjustments. And again, we're also looking at an increase in the number of students that are going out to magnet schools. There are approximately 30 additional students, so we needed to budget for that number as well. In terms of supplies, I don't think I have to tell you the inflation has hit us hard. The cost of a box of paper alone has gone up over the past 2 years over 30%. One of the things that we're certainly seeing is the cost of purchasing supplies has gone up pretty dramatically. We needed to reflect that in our budget. And again, we also are accounting in our budget for the inclusion of the state-mandated K-3 reading program. The Science of Reading process mandated that districts look at new reading programs. We have a reading committee that is in the final stages of selecting a program. We will be utilizing state grant funds of $126,000 to offset that cost, but that is certainly a cost that needs to be borne in our budget. Technology equipment is increasing 18.63%. Again, this is inflationary price adjustments, funding for security upgrades. We just replaced several cameras at the high school this week that had outlived their useful life. In addition to that, we are also going to be doing Chromebook updates. As our oldest Chromebooks now come offline and are no longer supported, we'll need to replace those. I am pleased to report that one thing you do not see in our budget is the request for additional desktop units. That is something you've seen over the past 2 years. We were able to utilize grant funds to finish that project, so that is not contained in next year's operating budget. And again, just again to talk about the budget process, we've had a series of budget workshops. I was able to present this budget to the Board of Education on March 12th. It came before council on March 15th. We had a presentation before council on the 18th. We are here this evening at the townwide budget hearing. I also understand that we'll be meeting with council again on April 29th. And then finally, we'll get the allocation of the budget for 24-25 no later than the May 15th of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, Michael. I don't know if any counselors have any questions, but we did hear this before. We had a chance to question, and we're going to have it again on the 29th. So if there's not any questions, I'll take some if there is, but if there's not, we can move right to the town manager's presentation. Does anybody have any quick questions? No. Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Fred, Mr. Town Manager, it's town budget.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Town Council members, citizens of Wethersfield. It's my pleasure to present the fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget for the town. This year's budget theme is continuing to build the capacity to meet the opportunities and challenges before us. We have many opportunities right now in the way that the federal and state dollars are available like we've never seen before. But to fully realize those opportunities, we need to step up our capacity to be able to apply for and administer the grants if we're successful to get them. We have been successful to date with the capacity that has been added by the previous council and this council. We look to add to that as well to allow us to continue to build on that. Now, we also face many challenges, as been alluded to earlier, particularly with our infrastructure, our school buildings, our town buildings, and many of our fields are in disrepair after really decades of underfunding and neglect. So it's a challenge that we need to face, and it's a challenge that I believe that the town staff and this council needs to address as best that we can. But we have to do it in a way that is sensitive to the realities of the financial situation that we have in the town, and I will cover many of these things. But highlighting that is really how do we do that with the least impact to the taxpayers that we possibly can, and that's really the goal here. Before we get going, I do want to acknowledge the help of all of our department directors and division heads to put this budget together and submitting their budgets, and of course to our finance department, Mike O'Neill, Joe Clerk in my office, Erica Robertson, and Cheryl Pierce played a critical role in putting all this together. So what you see before you is basically the layout of this presentation. It's very similar to what I did last year. We're going to start off with talking about our accomplishments, and then we'll go through some background, set the context for the budget, provide you with a quick budget overview, and then talk about our priorities and then summarize. As we go through this, you'll see this slide pop up again. Whatever's highlighted in red will be what we'll be discussing next. So first, we're going to go into our accomplishments. I'm not going to speak to all of these items, but I think it is worth noting and celebrating the great work we have done over the past year. We did complete a comprehensive classification and compensation study for all of our town employees, which was been many, many years since that had been done. And we've gleaned a lot of valuable information from that. Some of what you see in the budget in terms of increases are directly related to those positions that are most out of whack, if you will, that they're really behind the market. where we're having serious problems with retention, so there's some money in the budget for that. We implemented our yard waste collection program, which received a lot of positive feedback from residents from. In the first week of sending out the postcards, we sold out all 700 of the first order of the brown barrels, and the next order is coming in, and we will continue to order those until everyone's had a chance to get the barrels that they want. Initially, that's been limited to 1 barrel. I know a lot of people want to get more than one. You'll have that opportunity soon. Just bear with us as we give everybody an opportunity to get it. We were awarded a Safe Streets for All grant for Silas Dean Highway. That's a $640,000 grant that we got in partnership with the town of Rocky Hill to really focus on the safety of that road, slowing down the traffic, working on those intersections to create more pedestrian-friendly nodes that connect Wethersfield proper with Old Wethersfield so that we can really have a better integrated community. We have hired consultant to create an affordable housing plan that's mandated by the state, and the same consultant team is also going to be updating our plan of conservation and development. Both of these are mandates that we have. We're behind on that, but now we're able to move forward with that and get that moving. Many of you received your notices that the revaluation has begun. That's another thing that we need to do by state mandate, and that process is going to move forward. So, there's been several successful economic development projects that have been incentivized through the money that the previous council designated through ARPA funding to incentivize businesses to come here, to expand, and to add value to their properties, and we're seeing great return on that already. We have a new webpage design that's underway. We have a consultant contract coming to this council very shortly. And we were awarded a $2 million grant to the Wethersfield Housing Authority for a renovation project on one of their properties, and we're looking at many other opportunities for them as well as we move forward. So that's just a few of the highlights. The other key one I want to mention is the strategic plan. So this council worked, the previous council and this council, the members of this council worked on the first strategic plan to be done in this town in many years, and I would say the first truly comprehensive strategic plan process. And that really is going to be setting the plan for us moving forward as the town staff and as we develop these budget documents. So more and more you're going to see strategic plan priorities as part of this budget as we move forward. So next, just to build a little context, I'm going to talk a little bit about the community itself. Many of you know these things, but I think it's important for anybody that doesn't, that's new to the area. Population, based upon the last census, was around 27,300. This is actually a higher number now. We're seeing we're slowly increasing, but it's more around 28,000. Unemployment dipped slightly in the last year. It was 4.2 last year. It's 4.1 now. Fairly consistent. Median household income rose again. Last year was around 100. Now it's 108. The average assessed value of a single-family home is about $176,000. Again, that's the assessed value. The average market value increased substantially over the last year or so, and that's sitting now at about $317,000 according to the Realtor data. That number, we will be seeing some of these increases with this revaluation that's going on, and that will require us to kind of do a full reset of our mill rate once that process is complete. So some of the specific challenges here in Wethersfield, I touched on these last year, but I'll touch on them again because I think it's important that people realize we're a largely built-out community, and we are overwhelmingly residential in terms of use. What that means is that our residents pay the lion's share of our taxes. They take the lion's share of the burden. Whereas other communities with more land, they have more of an opportunity to have more commercial development and industrial development, those types of things. We're very limited in that respect, in being predominantly built out. Our average grand list growth from year to year usually hovers right around that 1%. Maybe on a good year we can see close to 2%. This year, actually, unfortunately, it actually went down like a fraction, but it went down because of the revaluation for used cars, believe it or not. With the pandemic, many of you probably saw on the news the used car values went through the roof. People were paying crazy amounts for vehicles. and that was because the stock of the new cars just wasn't happening. That's kind of resetting now, and we saw a huge drop. So the grand list for car valuations dropped over $11 million this year. So that kind of took away a lot of the gains we had on the other things. It's pretty much flat, but it's worth noting that we didn't even make the 1% on grand list growth this year. So being that that's the case, we're also particularly impacted by inflation, which we're seeing now still, and also by a real estate market fluctuation. So we see those things more than other communities might. So next we'll go into the budget overview for the proposed budget. So some of the drivers for this year's budget. Superintendent Emmett mentioned the healthcare cost. They've put a number of 12%, I think, in their budget. We were getting more numbers because ours is a little bit behind theirs. We put in 10%. I will tell you that number is going to continue to come down based upon what we're seeing. So, and there'll be other opportunities for this council to decrease what's proposed here, because as the numbers come in, it's just the nature of this business that we get our numbers from the state and others late in this process, and we do the best we can. We have to be conservative, but in all reality, our numbers are going to come down based upon some of these drivers. Workers' compensation already, actually, we did get those numbers, and that dropped about 30% or $200,000. Pension liability, we're estimating right now about an 11.5% increase. Retiree medical, again, the 10%, and then salary and wages was a big one, and that's a true number, and that's about a 5.4% increase, or just over $1 million. So this is actually in the budget document, and this is just a general overview of both our expenditures and our revenues. And again, if you look at the one to the right, the green one, that biggest piece there, that's the homeowners. And that's very, it's not typical. And generally, you look for like a 70-30 split with commercial and industrial and those types of uses. We're closer to 90-10, 85-15 if we're lucky. We've got to do better with that, and those are things we're working on with economic development, but that's why we see the impact there on the residents more. And then we talked about some of the drivers on the other side. Education accounts for about 52% of our budget right now. And then you have the other things like public safety, physical services, or public works. Those are the big drivers in our budget overall. So by the numbers, this budget represents a total of about 6% increase in expenditures. That includes both the Board of Ed and the town. The town side increase is about 5.5%. The Board of Ed, you just heard, is about 6.5%. 34% of our increase is to cover contractual salary and benefit increases. Our unassigned fund balance, we're being consistently aggressive with that, and we are proposing 10.5% fund balance, or about $13 million. There's opportunity to reduce that. Our policy right now says that we must stay within between 7 and 10. So we're slightly over that, and we can go as low as 7. Don't recommend it, but it's something that certainly this council can discuss as we move forward with deliberations. Our debt service continues to decrease. Again, in this budget, we drop another $150,000, which is good news, particularly considering what we know is coming down the pike with respect to school bonding that we're going to have to look at in the very near future, and other projects in this town. Again, there's been a lot of neglect across the board with our infrastructure. The reality is, to get these things done, you have to bond them. We bond at a very low rate. We're at about 3.5% of our budget. Generally, you want to stay below 10%. So 3.5 is very conservative from a borrowing perspective, but it's just not sustainable for our town if we're going to maintain our infrastructure the way we need to. One mill is worth about $2.4 million. The proposed budget has a mill rate of 44.87. Again, the expectation is that's going to come down as we move through the budget hearings, or the budget workshops, but that's where we're starting from. And then, and that's for real estate and personal property. The vehicle rate is mandated by the state, and that's set at 32.46. And then the budget proposes to maintain the road fund at a rate of, the rate actually drops a little bit, but the amount of the road fund remains the same at 0.59. And again, the average home assessed value is $176,000, which would see an annual tax increase as proposed of approximately $546,000. So moving on to our priorities. Similar to last year, I like to start with what are our commitments, mandates, and the community needs. So first, we're making sure that we maintain the funding for the capital improvement program and the capital non-recurring expenditure fund. That's for things like our vehicle fleet and other major equipment needs that don't qualify as a capital improvement, but they're big-ticket items sometimes. A fire truck is an example. Maintain strong fund balance reserves, I mentioned before. We're proposing it at 10.5%. Adequately fund the contractual and anticipated market-driven increases in salary and benefits. Again, that's a big number here. It's about $1.8 million in total. Adequately fund other contractual and anticipated market-driven increases, and that's approximately $1 million. Those are things like service contracts that we have across the town and that see regular increases just based upon market conditions. Talk about the education funding. I won't go into detail because I think the superintendent covered that very well. But in a nutshell, this budget includes their full ask. So the full 6.5% is included as part of this budget. I'll note too that in August each year, we go through a process whereby the estimated cost for the town services that we provide to the Board of Ed, we calculate the value of that. We're actually required to do that by the state. So for those of you that don't know, the town covers all facilities, maintenance requirements for the schools, as well as things like utilities, and there's debt service costs from previous projects. So all that together equates to about $12 million. So that's not included in that $65 million. Again, bonded debt service has decreased. The big spike there in the middle of that graph you see, that was the high school project. Since that was completed and we've been paying down that debt service over time, we are at a pretty good spot right now where we're at with the current debt service amount of about $4.4 million. Capital improvement projects, we kind of took a different approach to it this year with the CIAC, the Capital Improvement Committee, Advisory Committee went through, and instead of what they normally do, they get an amount from the council. The council says, we're going to give you $1 million, and you tell us what projects to do. We took a different approach this year in that many projects that were high-ticket items, but high priority, never made it to the list because they didn't feel the money was spread out well enough. We took that away and said, just rank the projects for what they are. Tell us what the priorities are, and from there, the council will decide how much money and which projects should and shouldn't be done. We think it's just a better approach, and it gives the council the full information, what they need to make the decision that they ultimately have to make anyway. So you can see from this list, there's over $6 million of requested projects. That's across the town. That includes everything from drainage, pavement maintenance, library, police, sidewalks, town buildings, school buildings, parks and rec. So you see some pretty big numbers in there. That goes back to that point I made earlier about the neglect that we've seen in this town for decades, frankly. And we've got to begin to chip away at that. We're not going to cover it all at once, and we're not going to be able to solve all the world's problems, but we've got to prioritize, and we've got to make sure that we're starting to take care of these really important things. Because if we don't, it's just going to become more and more expensive for us down the road. There are some new position requests and some reclassification requests as part of this budget that will be discussed by the council. There's a few that are included right now within the budget proposed here tonight. They include some restructuring within my office. We're taking some positions out of my office and putting them into economic and community development. We're also adding a position in my office for human resources and elevating the human resource manager to an assistant town manager position as proposed. We also have, there's some pretty big numbers there for the registrar and elections. The reason being is early voting. Those of you that aren't familiar with it, the requirement for the state, the mandate requires several days of added time that the registrar's folks have to be and poll workers have to be on site for this early voting. It's going to be 14 days leading up to the national election. There's an expense to that until this was mandated, we didn't have built in, so we need to build that in moving forward to make sure that that money's available for the registrar. But again, that's going to be a conversation with the council as we move forward. So next, just a quick summary of the proposed budget. Like I did last year, if you imagine that our whole budget is this dollar bill, over 52% of that's that school budget the Board of Ed's asked this year. If you take that amount that I talked about that we provide services to the school, that's about another 11% of the total budget. If you look at just our employee costs, and that's benefits, salaries on the town side, that's about another 30 or so percent. Then all the contractual obligations that we have and things of that nature, you're talking about another 10%, which really leaves a pretty small amount that is new in terms of, well, not even new, a lot of the stuff has been in the previous budgets, but there's more flexibility with it as the other stuff is pretty much mandated. So it's a small amount to really work with. It's about between $3 and $4 million total. But again, some of these things are contractually mandated, and our goal here is to make sure that we maintain the service levels that we have and don't drop them. But that's not always possible, and that's what this process is for, and that's what these budget work sessions are for. So what does this budget accomplish? It supports our schools. It fully supports the proposed Board of Ed budget. It funds our commitments and obligations. It maintains our capital funding at the current level. As I mentioned, we need to really look at that and maybe expand that some, but that's the starting point. It maintains our level of service provided for all departments. It maintains or increases our reserves as necessary, and it continues to reduce our debt service because, again, we're going to need that ability once we do some of these larger projects that are coming. Budget schedule, you've seen some of this with Superintendent Emmett's, but we are where the arrow is, April 15th. This is the budget public hearing. We have several scheduled budget workshops. The first 3 of those are going to be with departments presenting to the council their budgets and be able to answer questions that the council may have. Different from previous years where those were held over in the community center, we are actually going to do them right here, and we're going to stream them live, and you can watch them, or you can go back and watch them later. We haven't had that ability in the past, but in speaking with the council, they felt that transparency was important. We want to give as many people as possible the opportunity to participate in this process, so those will all be streamed. And as Mike Emmett alluded to, this is all to be wrapped up by May 15th. So with that, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, and I appreciate the work that you did, and Mike O'Neill and Erica Robertson and the entire staff that helped. I know it's a lot of work that goes into the budget. And the main purpose of this presentation was to hear from the public, but I'll entertain any quick council questions if they have any. We'll have plenty of time through these workshops, but if there's something, Councilor Carbone.
I don't have a question, well, kind of as a clarification point, but all the budget workshops are open to the public as well, right? They can come here
Absolutely.
if they want to, yes. So not only are they streamed, but you can come
Yes.
and participate or watch and listen. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Anybody else? Okay. So now is the time to hear from the public, and I appreciate the wonderful audience. Tells me that you all care about the town budget, and I appreciate that. So I'm just going to read this. Public participation is encouraged. Any citizen or property owner is able to speak at the subject budget hearings initially for no longer than 10 minutes. After all persons wishing to speak have done so, those wishing to speak for a second time shall be allowed to do so for no longer than another 10 minutes. At this time, there should be, if you've signed up, there's a list here, and there's also a call on deck. There's another list. There's a little podium near where Mike O'Neill is, a little in front of him. And I don't know, Sue, do you have the list in terms of the sign-up, in terms of?
People can just raise their hands, and if they signed up already.
Okay, so then we'll do this by hand raising. So if you'd like to speak on the budget, and again, this is only on the budget, not other items in town, but solely on the town school budget. So I'll take anybody who wants to go first. I see someone in the back. Polly, is that you? Come on up, please. Well, I was just asking Sue for the list, but I don't know.
Everyone's already signed up.
think we want to go in order of,
I was first on the list anyway.
give you a lot of credit for being first, Polly.
That's
but
right.
For the record, your name
On
is...
time, could I just say that?
On time, yeah, thank you. Just for the record, your name and address, please.
Polly Moon, 23 Orchard Brook Drive in Wethersfield. I'm here primarily tonight to speak on, representing the Friends of the Library and speaking on behalf of the Friends and of the library, as well as other items. One of the things that, having been involved with the library over the years, I looked quickly at the budget. I've had the great opportunity to attend some of the meetings and that type of thing. So I, first of all, am very thankful as a member of the Friends and also having been a former board member, and not only the library, but I think everybody in this, the elected officials and also others from the town to work on these budgets because they are terrible. We don't want to tell the new members of council how really bad it is, but...
You just did.
Yeah, I know, but I did, sorry.
That's all right.
Anyway, so I know all of you have worked really hard on this and will continue to. The library budget is less than 2% of the total town budget, and it has been for a long, long time. So even if you increase, or should I say, accept the library board's budget, it will affect your mill rate it won't even affect your mill rate. It's less than a mill. So keep that in mind, that it is I know it's a tough year and I know there's a lot that's tough, but the library is not costing you a lot of money, and it is a service that, as we used to say, that is there from cradle to grave. And I spend a lot of time in the library now, and I see this newly done downstairs in the children's area, and it's absolutely fantastic. And it's full of kids all the time. And also to kind of follow up on Julianne's marvelous ideas of projects, I also see a lot of grandparents there with their little kids. So everyone is getting a lot of use out of it. The Friends have continually over the years helped to support the library in ways that were outside of their operating budget. We have done that through, made contributions through large book sales. We have done it through, we've started this year, we will be able to, I think, have 2 book sales, one in April and hopefully one in November. We had one in November where we made nearly $8,000. And we expect to have a huge one in April, so everybody mark your calendars, the 27th and 28th of April. Any of the books that we have that are left over from our sales, many of them are donated further to nonprofit organizations that can use them. We've had pop-up sales for jigsaw puzzles and other puzzles and games, and we intend to keep up with those. We've also had raffles, and we're now going to start this year with online sales because that's worked very well. What we support, last year we supported the summer reading plan, summer reading program. We donated, it was roughly $11,000. 9,000, actually 10,000 of that were for teen and children programs for summer reading. We had 1,800, almost 1,900 children who registered for the summer reading program, read over 7,800 books. We had 340 teens, which actually is pretty good. I don't know if any of you have teens, but getting them to read that much would be pretty good. And they read over 1,000 books total. And we actually, 1,000 of that also goes toward adult reading, summer reading. We had almost 100 people signed up for that. So the library has made great use of the money that we've given them. We've also funded museum passes. We have recently provided funding for a speakers consortium that will allow the library to bring in 2 to 3 good authors per month for events. We helped fund the children's learning environment, and we are also going to contribute to the story walk. So we're doing our best to help to supplement with the help of with our director, Brooke Berry, and her absolutely terrific staff, who's very patient by all means. So I do ask you to give that consideration. I also just made some notes as I was listening. I realized that what we're hearing are some pretty high percentages, one for the Board of Ed. That's an area, as most people know, that has been, over the last couple of years especially, underfunded. And I think Mr. Presley made the point a couple of times, we can't let things go with our infrastructure and some of our programs, because then all of a sudden we get hit with a big bill at the end. So I just wanted to thank you all again. And by the way, just let Julianne, our kid mayor, know that we would all love to hear from them, but we're not all bored. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Polly. I have 5 names on the list, and Polly was first. The next up is Bob Woodard. Bob?
Thank you.
Yes, I see.
My name is Bob Woodward, and we have lived at 456 Middletown Avenue for 46 years. Back in March, I spoke after the Board of Ed budget was presented, and I said it was insensitive. And I will use that word on the whole budget, although I do appreciate Mr. Presley's explanation of some of the points there. It's insensitive to those of us who live in this town, especially the seniors. Social Security went up 3.2%. My pension, after several years of no increase, went up about the same 3.2%, but who knows when the next increase will be. Groceries are going up tremendously. We've always paid cash for our groceries. Recently, we decided that we were going to have to take some more money out of our reserves just to pay for groceries. I had an interesting, similar conversation with people on Sunday when I walked into church with them. We talked about grocery prices. Gas prices are going up again. Last March, this past February rather, I walked down cellar and the floor was half covered with water. And there was something dripping out of the furnace, and I thought, oh my gosh, the boiler's gone. So we called the oil company, they sent someone, and thankfully he had a little more experience and expertise with furnaces than I do. He said, it's fine, it's just this one leak, and he patched it up, and I was extremely grateful. I was seeing dollar signs flying out of my checkbook because the furnace is a little over 20 years old. The roof is the same, and you know, we have to plan this maintenance and pay for it. We can't pass it off on taxpayers or bonds. We're the ones that have to take care of our house. We're the ones that have to pay for things. No question about that. If Pura allows, electric rates will go up about 19%. I'm hoping they don't. But we will all have to pay for that, and I think you're probably aware of that. We are not assumptions who have an extra 6.03% lying around. We are real people with real expenses, We have to pay for things the best we can. 6.03 is a bit high, very definitely. A woman from my neighborhood stood up here at the last council meeting. I watched it on TV, and she said, "Town taxes are high." And she is right. One of your parties, either Republicans or Democrats, in the run-up to the last election said, "We're going to get rid of all these for sale, for lease, for rent available signs." You haven't done it. They're growing like dandelions out there. There's one that very recently showed up just before you cross the tracks and come to the Ocean State parking lot, 2,500 square feet available. Yes, there are some things filling in. The restaurant that went in where the bookstore is on Silas Dean, Denny's is supposed to become a chicken place, but the available sign is still up. Apparently by Marshall's, where Pasta Vita and the liquor store were, there is something going in. There's talk of a Mexican place. What was Bed Bath & Beyond is getting a massive makeover, but I don't know whether anything's going in there or not. But all of these places, yes, we do get taxes on them, but I suspect we'd get more taxes if they were filled, if they were all occupied and busy. One of you, either Republicans or Democrats, made that promise and have failed to keep that promise to this point anyway. I know it takes time, but it might help with our tax rate. Absolutely. We're the only ones who've ever lived in our home, 46 years. We bought it as a starter home, 1 floor, basement, few rooms, very small piece of property. We never moved out. And now we've decided, compared to other senior living options, this is the best place that we can live. But the continuous increase in property taxes makes it hard to think about how do we plan maintenance, how do we plan this and that. It's also extremely disheartening that over 50% of my taxes, our taxes, for 46 years have brought us no benefit. We've never had children. We've never put any burden on the school system, and we've never had any benefit from it. And yet we've faithfully paid the taxes. And what have we gotten? Nothing. And I could say the same about the debt service. We've faithfully paid the taxes on that, whether it's been schools or other things. And I could go through the list and say it largely has not benefited us. I'm glad you saved the barn up at Cassia Farm. It looks nice, but the Cassia Farm project will not benefit us, nor has the Wilkes Farm, nor other things. We need and we value the roads being repaved and taken care of. We need and we value the fire, the police, the ambulance, the sidewalks, the street lights, the traffic lights, snow plowing, as long as my mailbox doesn't get hit anymore, the library, which is welcoming, trash pickup, sewage, all provided by the town. And if I went through in detail of the 248 pages of your budget, I would probably come up with about 60% of my money that gets me nothing. Why am I still paying it? When am I going to get something? I hear about projects for the schools, and yes, schools need to be maintained. But you know, if the school budget went down a little bit, it would leave something to say, hey, yeah, we can add something in for maintenance. Gets hard when the school budget wants 6.5%, and then they want more on top of it that is not going to benefit us. You think you can keep the total mill rate at 41.99? That's not much of an increase, but I'll throw that number out there. I will follow this process. I'll see where you go. But please remember, you're here for all of us. You're here for all of us. The statement this budget makes is you're looking for a wealthy town. You're here for all of us. Whatever we make, whatever we don't make, you're here for all of us to provide this town and to make it livable for all of us. I wish you well in the process. and I will keep an eye on it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bob. Next on my list is Scott. Scott Wands? Scott, yep.
Thank you, Mayor Lesser, and thank you, Town Council. I'm here tonight to talk on behalf of two things I'd like to recommend be fully funded in the budget as presented. The first is the town library budget. I am on the library board, joined in November, and been part of all the budget processes going on since November. And Brooke does a fabulous job with the budget, trying to maintain at level funding, but it cannot be maintained at level funding. This year, it's being requested for a 4.99% increase, which is $107,000. That's largely because of labor, other personnel costs, increased technology costs, costs to do e-books. These are things that cannot be reduced any further without reducing further services to the town library. Additionally, there's a request in the budget for $200,000 for an RFID upgrade. The town systems in the library are in major need of repair. This is something that will be helping all the town citizens be able to check out books. The library do faster. It will save money in the long run for the town. Brooke does not ask for money often. She is trying to maintain a level budget. These are services that are needed by the town. Everything Polly said, I don't want to repeat here, but the Friends are a benefit to this library and to the town. The whole budget just for programs in the town library budget is $7,300. That's because of the Friends. The Friends fund all the programs that we all benefit from. My daughter benefits from, the town residents benefit from. A 4.99% budget increase, I know, is not something that is to be taken lightly when all of these budgets need increases, but I strongly encourage you to not make that part of the budget that gets cut over the coming weeks. Additionally, I want to speak on behalf of the town Board of Education budget. The Board of Education budget, I know, is a big increase to us. I know the previous gentleman talked about it's hard times for us all. If we do not invest in our children, if we do not invest in our schools, we are not investing in the future of this town. We're not going to be the town that people want to move into. We're going to have more vacancies. We'll have more businesses that are going to go out of business, and our home values will decrease over time. I know my house, just since I purchased in 2010, has increased, and as Town Manager Presley talked about, valuations are going up here. This is because of the good town that we have, and we need to keep investing in it. We can't cut back from that. So I encourage you to fully fund the town library and the Board of Education budget. Thank you.
Scott, I'm not sure you gave your address. Just
4 Avalon Place. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So you got that? Yes. Great. Next I have Connor or Gary. Connor?
Good evening. My name is Connor Geary. I reside at 3 Somerset Street. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Town Manager, members of Town Council, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me. I'll speak just for a moment or two. I purchased my home in 2017. I lived in Wethersfield for a few years prior to that and really fell in love with the town of Wethersfield. I didn't grow up here. I grew up on the other side of the river, but chose to make my home here. My wife and I have a 15-month-old daughter, and I think she'd be okay with me sharing another on the way. So thank you. And I demand to live here with no taxes, I'm telling you. It is our intent, and we've talked very actively about this, to make Wethersfield our home for as long a time as possible. We love it here. We love the community. We love the involvement. But it is important for us to feel like this is a two-way street, that what we are putting in, if in fact it is 90 cents on every revenue dollar coming from residential property taxes, that there is something that we're getting in return. And my priorities as a relatively new father have shifted since I got here in 2017. I now notice the sidewalks with the stroller and how challenging that can be. I now notice the speed of other cars doing, I literally say 90 miles an hour on the Celestine Highway while we're waiting to cross. I now notice darker corners of the street when I'm riding my bike. And so I want to thank those involved with the planning process for thinking about the elements of the town that might have been neglected for quite some time. My street speaking anecdotally, since I purchased the house in 2017, has probably had no fewer than 10 houses that have turned over, many of whom are younger couples with or without children. But there is definitely a different feel to our neighborhood than there was when I first moved in, and we love that. It is our hope to stay here. But as I look to what the school system in this town will look like in time, as I look to what the resources available for my daughter and whatever number 2 is, which we'll find out on Friday, we're starting to think about our relationship with the town a little bit differently. I am fortunate and willing to buy into the town of Wethersfield, and if it requires a little greater investment to get a better return on that investment, well, I know I don't speak for Mr. Woodward and what he puts into the town and what he gets back out of that. Please know that our calculus is in favor of improving the town, making it more navigable, safer, better education systems. The Mother Goose project at the town library that my mother drives in to take our daughter to every week is invaluable. My first time in the library, quite frankly, other than taking a left to come to Chambers here, was to go to Mother Goose with my daughter, and now we make it a weekly thing. So we look forward to being here for the long term. I appreciate your consideration in making Wethersfield better. I understand it's not always easy, but the value calculation on what we get out of this relationship as property owners and as people looking for the long term, please keep that in mind as you make your decisions with regards to the budget for the town and for Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor, and congratulations on your upcoming child. Next, I have Cindy Jacobs. Cindy, I saw you somewhere.
Good evening. Cindy Jacobs, 71 Sunrise Terrace. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and thank you for the hard work of the town manager and many other staff members who came in, and also the Board of Ed, who came in to put these documents together. So the town has requested a 6% increase in the revenues to maintain basically a maintenance budget. So it's really not asking for anything, much of anything extra, both on the town side and on the education side. And a lot of this is due to salaries, health benefits, pensions, state mandates, kind of built-in cost increases, as well as the drop-off of the ARRA and the ARPA funds. So in principle, I support this maintenance budget. And it makes it a tough year because of these kind of built-in requirements and cost increases. The capital maintenance is modest. It calls for a 1.5% increase versus 3 to 5%, which is the usual case in most towns of our size. To me, that's a little concerning, and I've been up here on several occasions advocating for maintaining our streets, sidewalks, town infrastructure, and so on. So hopefully we can, with those modest funds, continue to meet our obligations to maintain our infrastructure. At the town level, there is somewhat of a reorganization of the town manager's office. I will note that the planning and economic development calls for a technical assistant, and I'm assuming that that is to make permanent the 3-year position of the grants assistant. And let me tell you, she has done a remarkable job. And this has paid for itself 10 times over. We have had success. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have come to our town with the Silestine Highway study being funded, Berlin Turnpike, other grants for the community center. We didn't get it. We're going to try again. But we have experience in that. Transportation improvements. This is money well spent. This is money that is really, this position is an investment in the town. The Board of Ed has requested a 6.5% increase. I think that requires a little bit of context. We had a 0% increase last year, which essentially is a decrease. So we're really making up for ground from 2023. The average BOE request in the region is 6.27%, so we're within that range. in the region, and Newington is asking for, I'm told, a 7.29% increase. So this is not untoward. This is a tough budget year. Again, the towns are earning their ARPA funding, a lot of them having gone to the school. I will say my children are grown, but I support this budget. My kids went through the K-12 public schools. My daughter receives special services. I know and I appreciate how expensive that is, and both of my children have benefited from it. All of us, the idea that you don't get anything from education, I have to disagree. We all benefit from a highly qualified, educated populace, many of them who come and settle into our town. They also become higher income earners. And they also, as we mentioned, just from a purely selfish point of view, of the value of our homes. In this challenging budget year, I think it requires context and perspective. The last 3-4 years, the town has benefited from ARPA and ARA funds, which have been largely spent out. And the past 3-4 budget years, which, very small increases, have reflected that, federal largesse. So we must understand that those funds are spent out, and now we have to make these fund commitments. We must understand that there are built-in labor and benefit and materials that are rising. As it mentioned, our town's grand list is constrained by the fact that it lacks significant tracts of underdeveloped land. So again, I support this simply maintenance town and education budget. In the town manager's presentation tonight and in his budget document, he does provide some necessary context, and as well, the steps we are taking to reduce expenditures and to increase town revenues. The town is invested in an economic development director and a planner, and incredibly, for years, our town only had an economic development, only a town planner. We did not have a standalone economic development director, and that has paid dividends. And the entry hot properties that I hear, they're being filled. So I can tell you, as a member of the EDIC, we get a monthly report of on town properties, and we're doing very well. We won't see these immediately in terms of our grand list, but I can attest that I think there's success along the way. And our town economic development, we can see the success in Old Wethersfield and the kind of resources that the town has put in, as well, of course, as the efforts of the shopkeepers. And it is just a place of amazing vitality, and it's something a place that is now becoming a destination for people outside the town. As a member of the EDIC, we've invested, the town has invested ARPA funds strategically in a new incentive program for infrastructure improvements for new businesses locating, so that they may need some help with certain particular infrastructure to set up to establish their business. Of course, we have the facade improvement program, which is important for a town that has older buildings, to improve those for new businesses, or even and for existing businesses as well. So we need to continue to invest in economic development to improve our revenues in future years, and this budget does this. In the budget document, there's also mention of an energy consultant to engage in strategies to lower energy costs. The town is looking into legislative assistance, Wethersfield, among other towns that have little room to grow. We are built out. And so I think we need to have conversations with our state delegation and understand how they can help us with this. So these steps will pay benefits in the next 2 to 5 years, but in the meantime, in the current budget year, I do support in principle the maintaining of this, maintenance budget of the Board of Ed and for the town. As I look at the budget document, I am also noting areas that may present opportunities for savings or revenue increases, so I'd be happy, and I think this is what the whole process is about, welcoming that conversation. So I'd be happy to do that in future public hearing. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Cindy. That's all the list I have. I'm sure that there are likely more of you that would like to speak, so I'm going to take a raise of hands. I think, Russ, you were the first hand to go up, so name and address, please. Russ.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, esteemed councilors. Russ Moran, 495 Broomfield Road. First of all, I'd like to thank you for appointing me. I had a few doubts as I watched you, but thank you. I also want to thank you, all of you, for your service, for volunteering for this town. It's a rewarding job, it's a difficult job, and it's not high-paying, and you all deserve our gratitude for that. Mr. Presley, I was very impressed with your presentation. I've sat through a few of these over my career, and this was arguably one of the best prepared and explained, and with honesty and no gimmicks. I very much appreciate that. You know, Wethersfield's an interesting town. We have an aging population. And thanks to you, Mayor Lesser, everybody knows that I'm now part of that senior citizen
As am I.
And, you know, and you take everything, you listen to the diversity of the crowd and the people have concerns from here to there. And how do you all make decisions? What's the best way to make the decisions? Grace and I raised our 3 children here. They all graduated from Wethersfield High School. They're all extremely successful professionals. In spite of me, they're doing well. I look at the gifts that they got when they went through this system. And some of the people are sitting out here that provided them. Remarkable. But we sometimes get bogged down with cost, just costs. And I get it, we all pay taxes, it stinks. None of us want to pay them. But when you look at the benefit to our community, and it's a community, whether you have children or don't have children, or use the library or don't use the library, it's called a community. And what the benefits we get out of investing in this community come back to us tenfold. The benefits of investing in education, in the infrastructure, ensuring that the folks that work at Public Works and at the police department, that they have the tools to provide the services for us in the best and efficient manner. That'll all come back to us. If we just look at an artificial number, hey, we kept taxes down, the number's low. I think the best I've ever seen analogy of that is the old Amco transmission commercials. You can pay me now or pay me later. And that's exactly it. So I'm not going to stand here or try to stand here and criticize any numbers. I will encourage you to do the deliberations like I know you will. I'm in support of the budget as presented. I'm sure I could find more things I would want to do. I'm sure I could look through it and find some things that I don't want to do. But guess what? I didn't run for town council. And I didn't run for Board of Ed. And that's your jobs to ensure that you represent us as a community and do what's best. I know you will. It's not easy for all of you sitting up there. Good luck. But there are a lot of people here. My 2 daughters that have their children in the schools here have asked me to share their support, doing mom and dad things like T-ball and putting kids to bed. So that's about it. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of differing things, some positive, some not so. But again, thank you all for what you do.
Thank you, Russ. Tom?
Tom Izzard, 92 Ciderbrook Drive, Wethersfield. Thank you, councilors, for your time. I agree with Russ. Fred, I think you did an outstanding job with the budget presentation. My wife and I have lived in town, been homeowners since 1980, and I'm just in full support of the entire budget, the Board of Ed, the infrastructure, everything we do. We raised both our girls in the town school system. They both, like Russ, went on to very professional careers. They both have graduate degrees. They benefited from good education in town. they're grown and no longer in the school system, but I just think that it's almost an ignorant thing to say that it's what's in it for me for the school system. You need a good Board of Education for a town, or it's just going to tear your home apart. And just, you know, to me, I'm just full support of everything as it's presented. I think you've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Raise your hand if you'd like to speak on the budget tonight. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Melinda Zeman. I live at 34 Olney Road. This is my second time listening to the budget because I've only lived here 2 years, and I'm kind of an in-betweener. I'm a retired educator, so I understand the importance of education, but I'm also retired and understand that the increase in taxes are a difficult thing for all of us. However, I have been doing some substitute teaching in Connecticut, seeing what other school districts are missing because they're not being properly funded is hurting the children tremendously, and it is going to come back to bite us. And so while I appreciate everybody's point of view, and I do hope that everybody is being considered in the budget, I don't know a lot about funding or politics, to be perfectly honest. If there's a way in which we can support our seniors while also supporting education, I think it's something we need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Would like to go next? Anybody's hand? I don't see anybody. Mr. Young. Bob?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. I looked at this budget, and one of the things is, and listening tonight, I just find it so damn high in value or in increase. You know, today we have so much going on in the world that's not good. I spoke to you some time ago about interest rates. They're climbing up again. We're going to be looking at some real bad times with oil. We're going to be people tonight spoke about grocery stores and prices. I know none of you are affected by that, but the rest of us are. Interest rates. There's a lot more work that has to be done on interest rates, or I should say inflation. And there's no way they're going to turn this thing around for quite a while, because it's just not going to happen, because it's just so bad and ugly out there. Every time you turn around, higher prices, higher prices. Now, in this particular budget, I heard people come up here tonight and talk very topside about the budget. I look at it from the detail, down in the bottom end of how the budget is made. And, you know, first of all, I'll talk about the Board of Education budget. You're looking at $4.7 million increase, 6.5%. And when I look at the spreadsheet of expenditures, I'm not looking at the revenues, I'm only looking at the expenditures side. They've basically taken the budget and moved it over into the reforecast. They made a few little changes. They made an adjustment of $34,000 savings. Otherwise, they ate the whole budget up. There's no savings. $34,000, that's nothing out of a $61 million dollar amount. And as I look at it, and I look at what the actuals were for last year, 2022, 2023, compare what they were spending then, what they ended up spending in 2023-24, which is right now. I see some absolutely unethical things going on here. I see where there's no money, yet all of a sudden, they do have money in this current budget. I see some flip-flops going on, and I see high percentage increases. For instance, they have instructional equipment, very small money, but they're looking at a 15% increase. I'm looking at books and periodicals. They want a 12% increase. Administration and office supplies, 14% increase. Instructional supplies, they're looking at 10.5% increase. Magnet tuition, they're looking at 19.94% increase. Direct placement private tuition, 28.7% increase. Printing and binding, 30.97% increase. Homeless transportation, 40%. 40%. I know, they offset it elsewhere as a gain and say, well, here, the bottom line is only 6.5% increase. You've got to go down into the weeds. And it goes on throughout the Board of Education's expenditure side. I mean, we're looking at where dollar amounts were last year was $415,000. Their actual to date is $291,000. There's only 4 months left. And we're at $291,000, and we're right back up to $428,000 for this particular budget that's being proposed. It's such a flip-flop. And if you're lazy people won't look at this. People who are looking to save money will look into this. And that's what we're up against. Who's going to be looking at these details and squeezing it? You know, I heard tonight from several speakers about inflation. And I spoke about inflation at the last meeting or two about homeowners and automobile insurance, which is nothing but everything is up, up, up. The other day I get this message from Hartford Current. Here for, I should say, a couple months ago, $183 for 8 weeks worth of their newspaper. I get a message again just a couple days ago, same kind of 8 weeks going out from now, $360. $182 to $360. How many newspapers does the town of Wethersfield buy from the Hartford Current? But you probably don't pay what retailers have to pay. We're retailers. Someone who has it, you buy it, or, we're not buying in bundles. But $360 for 8 weeks. You know what I'm going to do with that? Call them up, goodbye, never see you again. I've been with them since I moved to this town 40-some years ago. And I think there's a word that they use. I don't want to shock anybody. The word is trigger them. And I'm going to trigger them. They're gone. They're called canceled. But that's what we need to do in our town. These high costs that we continue to pay for, we should be getting rid of them. We should be out there shopping. We're supposed to have a purchasing group in town, correct? I mean, what the heck are they doing when we pay the kind of prices that we pay? And that goes with the Board of Education. You got to cut these back. Now, let's talk a little bit about, and let me go back to the board for a second. They had in 2022-23, they had 3,629 students. This year, they have 33,560 students. They've taken a drop, okay? They've taken a drop, and also, there's 130 students that are choice students. Take that off of the 3,560, and we're down to 3,430 students. That's what our Wethersfield students are. Now, in the past, we've heard the superintendent talk about his preferred size of classes, but he's bringing in 130 students that are maybe making those numbers kind of high that he can talk about, and it's nothing but get rid of them. Send them back to where they come from, and we take care of our own, and that's what we should be doing. But we're going to be paying, and what do we receive, Mayor, for those choice students? $8,000 a year, and they cost us in Wethersfield $18,000. We take a $10,000 bite per student. We shouldn't be taking them in. Let Hartford take care of them. Wherever they came from, let them take care of them. The state will bail them out. Is the state going to bail us out? Of course not. How about the price of homes in our community now? I had a message with the manager this afternoon or this morning about something that ended up being an error in your budget book. $166,000 is the average taxable assessed value this year, from what I understand. Last year was $175,000. This year, it's $166,000. Yet your report up here tonight showed $174,000. And I thought that should have been corrected. Well, okay, where's the 166,200?
That's the median.
That's the what? The median sale price?
No, the median.
The median what? Assessed value.
Correct.
And that's what I'm talking about. The median assessed value last year was $175,000. This year it's $166,000. That's a big drop in our grand list. And when you look, and I don't know how that happened. Anyway, I'm going to go on and start talking about the budget for the town side. I've already said some things about the town side, and I talked about the grand list, and you talk about the grand list in your report on page 1-5. And you talk about leveling the immediate future because the community is built out.
1 minute left, so ask you to start to summarize. You have about 1 minute left of your 10 minutes.
I have 1 minute left? Well, anyway, you talk about building the grand list. I gave you options, an option to build the grand list time and time again over the last number of years, and that is to put 55 and over homes on Keisha Farm versus the suggestions that you want. Keisha Farms, if you put on 130 houses, and that's a model that I use as from Collier Farms. Exactly what Collier Farms has, same sizes, the average, and it works over onto Keisha, when you'd get out 130 houses of 55 and over, which means no children come out of those homes. And you could bring in an extra $1.3 million. Otherwise, you're going to spend millions of dollars every year for nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
I'll be back.
Thank you very much. Other Marjorie?
Hello there, Marjorie Carson, 12 Avalon Place, Wethersfield. I just wanted to talk about the school budget. And I think with that, whether it's the town budget or the school budget, I think a lot of times people think they have to like search for the bad guy, search for the boogeyman, blame somebody for all these problems, say, oh, it's you, you're a Democrat, it must be your fault. You're a Republican, it must be your fault. But where we are now is just because of our town is 90% residential tax base, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Nothing. If anyone wants to come up here and bring a solution besides regionalization, county government, there's just nothing we can do about it, even if we added like one Amazon warehouse, that might help, but where would you put it, right? So I think we just have to look at kind of what the context is of where we are as Wethersfield. And I've said this so many times because I'm not from Wethersfield, I'm from South Windsor and West Hartford originally. But when we moved here, we bought a house in 2004, and I'd always loved Wethersfield. I'd always loved Old Wethersfield. I just admired the town, and it was a good proximity to where me and my husband were working. So we decided to just pull up stakes here. And then you slowly get involved and you get to know the town, and I had 2 kids, and they're just flourishing in the schools. And so I have pride in this town. But what I see more than ever is so many people from this town who are adults, live here, grew up here, and they stayed here, and they bought a house, right? More than any other town I know. Where I went to school in South Windsor, you just don't see that. You don't see people going through that school system. They might have just taken off after college and moved elsewhere, but so many people stay because they have pride. And I think that's the painful part of these conversations is people maybe remember a town in like 1960, 1970, where the fields were perfect, where the taxes were lower. And they had pride, and they just love this town, and they stayed, and they might have gone to New York City, or they might have gone to another place, and they just think, no, when I have kids, I'm bringing my kids back here, and they did. And so more than half the people I run into, they tell me what graduating high school class or Wethersfield High they were from. So it's really an impressive kind of statistic, and I guess the point I would say is we want to keep that going, right? We want, maybe that wouldn't be crazy if my daughter who just started UConn and is flourishing, and go UConn, and she just started, what a great year to start as a freshman, right? If she, 10, 20 years from now, or 10, 15 years from now goes, you know what, I want to bring up my kids in Wethersfield. That's the goal, right, is to keep that going, keep that community. And it's not going to happen if you don't invest in the schools, if you don't invest in the town, and keep cutting and cutting, because these are both maintenance budgets, the Board of Ed and the town council budget. Where you're going to cut, and you're just going to cut into what we need. We just need. And I would also say there's no boogeyman within the town necessarily. A lot of these costs are things that are forced upon us, forced upon Newington, forced upon Berlin, definitely forced on Hartford, where it's health insurance, state mandates, gouging maybe by some curriculum companies that we are forced to buy curriculum, we're forced to buy Chromebooks, we're forced to do this and that. And of course we have to pay for teachers, and right now we want to keep the teachers we have because they can leave in a second, and they will, because that market is so big for them. They can just easily walk away half year, month into school, they can decide, I don't want to be here, which used to never happen. It's happening all the time now in school districts all over the state and the country. So let's think about investing, right? One of the things that's happened over the last few years is we kind of had this mirage of not having to raise taxes as much because we had this federal subsidy called ARPA. That is gone, and the reality is now hitting us that we need to actually pay for these things ourselves, and we have to start somewhere. Another thing I would say is if you have to look at other towns, I know Mr. Young talked about the Hartford Courant. We lack in a way of understanding what's happening in other towns because we don't have the reporting of the Hartford Courant anymore and see the context of what's happening there. But if you just search South Windsor's budget, Newington's budget, Berlin's budget, they're all going through the same thing. Mike Emmett is not the boogeyman who suddenly created this mystery budget and forcing on this. It is the same in every town. It's the same in every town. And the same with Fred. And just knowing that, in Newington, they have maybe a few hundred more students than us, but their budget for the Board of Ed just this past year was $88 million. $88 million for their Board of Ed. You know what ours is? $61 million. $61 million. And they are asking for a 7.5 increase. So the context is important. We're not just let's blame everyone in this town for the way it is and we can't move forward. If we keep just circling, it's this vicious cycle of blame, we're never going to grow out of this and come up with ideas and just live. We have to live to some extent with investing and moving forward so we don't keep chipping away. Because the more we chip away and not invest, the more the town's just going to degrade and degrade and degrade, and we're going to have to end up having to have more taxes just to fix that at a more expensive rate. So I support what you are trying to do. I know some of these things will actually come down a little. Health insurance is what the Board of Ed has an estimated 12% increase, but but there's an indication it'll be less. So hopefully these numbers will come down, but it is a maintenance budget. There's nothing new. In fact, the Board of Ed has things that they really, really needed, and they could not keep because it was just, we got to just do a maintenance budget. We can't ask for anything new. And I would end with a couple, a negative, not negative, but kind of a serious note and a positive note. There's a lot of kids in this town, and this is not just Wethersfield, it's statewide, nationwide, that are in a lot of pain. They're in a lot of pain because they have special needs that people have not seen. They just don't understand how bad it is. I was talking to another person who works in the school system in a different town who's like, this is unsustainable. There are so many special needs hitting the school systems right now, and they're at the preschool level, they're at the elementary school level, especially at the elementary school level. We're seeing it here in those elementary schools in Wethersfield. And some people will go around and say, we're not punishing these kids enough. The behavior is horrible. It's like, this is just Wethersfield's problem. It's like, no, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And how do you fix it? You got to bring and pay for supports for them. You need to have support staff to help, and especially special ed staff, which is required under the law, or we get sued. I will leave, so just know that that's happening. You can't erase it away. You can't just take it off of a budget line and hope the problem go away, because it will not go away. And I'll also leave with a really positive note. So I was a volunteer. The high school is doing some new things where they're adding a capstone program where it's required to graduate. A junior or senior is required to do this kind of presentation that's 5 to 10 to 15 minutes long in front of a panel, and this year it was in front of volunteers. It's the first year they've pulled it out. And they can do a project that maybe they learned something new, maybe they did a volunteer thing, or they can kind of defend their education up through the high school. It's called the Vision of the Graduate. And it's daunting for these kids, right? Daunting. And so a few of us, I see volunteers here and there that went to this thing, and over several days, and I had probably about 15 to 20 students do presentations in front of me and a couple of other panelists, and they were so good. They were so good. They were great. They're juniors, and they didn't know me, and they didn't know half the people on the panel, and they presented on a PowerPoint and maybe did this project. Some of them maybe didn't spend as much time as other people, but they were so good, and they're juniors, and I thought some of them just seemed like they had the maturity of a senior because they were just so good. So just know that if you don't have kids in the school system, your kids are long out of the school system, they're awesome. They're awesome still, and we want them to stay awesome, and we want to support that and their growth, and we want them to come back to town maybe and bring up their kids. So that's my say.
Thank you, Marjorie. Further public comment? Paul?
Paula Izzard, 92 Ciderbrook Drive. Marjorie, that was a great presentation. I just agree with everything she said. She put it so succinctly about education. I have lived in this town, I'd say probably about 65 years. I am a senior citizen. I went to school here. I went to Emerson Williams. I went to Celestine Junior High, we called it at the time. Graduated from Wethersfield High School. We have 2 daughters. They both went through the entire Wethersfield school system. As my husband said, graduated doing well. We totally support a town that has a good education system. I mean, I suppose if we wanted to, we could live in Florida half a year and pay less in taxes and not care about the young people in our town or having a nice town, just, we'd only care about our taxes. We buy groceries, we pay for things, we know things are expensive, but to not support the young people in their town coming up, not wanting young families to move in, just caring about us old people. No, we want young people, we want businesses coming in, we're just at Max Bebo's. The place is booming. It's nice to see. There's so many new shops in Old Wethersfield. There's so many good things. Mill Woods is a gem. I'd like to see Keisha Farm, the open land. I would like to see more businesses. Unfortunately, it's been said, we don't have the space here. We don't have the land. I would like to see other things other than smoke shops and, some really cool things like Glastonbury has. Maybe that can be worked on. But we can't just give up and say, well, we don't want to pay for it, so, the heck with it. We're not going to pay a little bit extra to support the young people, education, roads, the police department, fire department. When I was a kid, it was 25 cents to go to the movies. Everything goes up. Nothing really comes down. It all goes up. So I do support the budget, the Board of Education budget, and then I hope, I wish you all well and good luck, and we'll see what happens, but thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Further public comment? Just raise your hand if you want to speak. Tom?
I'm going to sit in the front row next time. Good evening, Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walker Hill Road. I wasn't going to speak tonight, which is a common theme that you hear. A couple things I just wanted to bring up. This is a daunting task for everyone up here, and the residents as well. There's always two sides of the disagreement, if you will, and I feel for some people that are, maybe on fixed income, struggling to pay all their expenses. It's not right, but that's reality. That's where we're at. Other people say, I don't mind spending a little bit more. This particular budget is a lot more. It's not a little bit more. For the mean house, people are looking at $550,000 or $550 increase in their property taxes. Now, my hope is that it's going to come down, and I think you have a lot of work to do to get it down. In reading the introduction, if you will, in both the town manager's budget and the mayor's message, on the last page in the conclusion, it says that 1 mil is equal to $2.4 million. And it's alluding to what you have to do to get that needle to move. And I believe it's a misprint because it says to get it to move 1/10 of a mil, you need to reduce your spending by $24,000. That's incorrect. It's $240,000. If you make a $24,000 change, that needle doesn't even move. I've been there, I've done that. So this is like I said, this is a daunting task. You're talking about $3 million increase on this piece of paper, on this budget. That's a lot of movement if you want to get anywhere near that. Now, sure, People don't want to see the budget remain, the mill rate remain steady. But you need to try and minimize it. One thing that I'd like to share is that I worked with Deputy Mayor and Mr. Presley on trying to come up with some solutions to solving our problem of 90% of our income comes from residential. And one of the things that strikes me as an avenue, not for this budget, but hopefully for the future budgets, is we need to put pressure on our state folks to find other ways to handle property tax reform in the state of Connecticut. It's not just Wethersfield, it's many towns and cities. We fall under the city guidelines, so we get shortchanged all the time. And some of you may have recalled 4 or 5 years ago, Mayor Bonin came to us with his handout. He needed $500 million to bail out the city of Hartford. And he came here asking for our help. It's like, you gotta be kidding. We need help. Never mind Hartford, we need help. And that has to come from the town, the council, town manager, and our elected officials. We have to put pressure on the state for property tax reform. One of the easy things that we kicked around is the pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes for state properties in Wethersfield, motor vehicle, labor department, prisons, whatever they call it. We're supposed to get reimbursed for that because we can't get any property tax out of that. And the plan was to reimburse municipalities, but they continually decrease the amount of reimbursement. We need to get that to go back up. We need help. So, like I said, that's not for this budget, but I implore you to do your best to try and make this more palatable for everyone. Some people can handle it, no problem. They might consider it a small increase. Other people, they're barely keeping their head above water, and this is going to push them over the edge. And I don't think that's right. I did also want to make a correction. One of the previous commenters talked about the Board of Ed budget last year. And the statement was that it was a 0 increase last year. And I just want to correct that. It was a $2 million increase over the prior year. $2 million. They asked for 3.5, and we gave them 2. And through social media and people talking at the grocery stores, we decimated the Board of Ed and gave them 0. And that's not correct. It was $2,040,229 is what they ended up with. I'm not an expert about education. Some of the people talked about their history. Well, I moved here when I was 6 years old from Hartford. My dad was an educator, and he wanted better for his kids, so we moved to the suburbs. We moved to Wethersfield. Wethersfield used to be like the West Hartford Avon. It was, you moved to Wethersfield, you were doing okay. I don't think that's the same as it was back then. I started at Lancaster. A lot of people don't even know where Lancaster is. It's now the Housing Authority office building, the 4-room schoolhouse. Four rooms in a little open area. That was the cafeteria, that was the rec area, that was everything. Then I went to Mitchell, another school a lot of people don't know where that is. Well, that's a senior housing or affordable housing. I went to Solestein. I went to the high school. I was not a great student, I'll be honest. That wasn't my thing. But it gave me the tools to succeed. And I'll forever thank the town for that. I traveled in my career almost entirely internationally, domestically as well. But I can honestly say Wethersfield is the best place in the world that I've ever been. And I hope to stay here until my time's up. But I also hope other people can stay here. And young families, like the person that spoke, he wants the best for his kids. I wanted the best for my kids. My kids both moved out of town. They wanted to be in a more affordable town. So I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm just trying to give you a little background of where I think you folks need to work on town side as well as the Board of Ed side. And a lot of people spoke about Board of Ed. We have to give them everything they need. Well, there's efficiencies that you can develop. There's better ways of educating. Just like there's better ways of maintaining roads and buildings and all the other things on the town side. Throwing money at things, whether it's a road project or putting a roof on or anything, that's not always the answer. So you have to try and come up with creative ways to improve the situation and maybe not spend as much. I'm not saying don't spend anything, but work hard to come up with some innovative ideas as well as the Board of Ed side. I know that's not up to you folks, but you can kind of nudge them and say, we're not going to give you everything you want, but you got to come up with a way to improve the education system for less money. Just like we're tasking Mr. Presley to come up with innovative ways to improve our structures, our infrastructure, our economic development, all those things. One last thing I just want to...
You got one more minute.
Yeah, I'm done. I just want to say, we strive to get more grants. Grants are good, but grants are tax dollars, okay? We are all paying for that in some maybe small, minute area amount, but if we get it, someone else isn't getting it. So, keep trying to get the grants, but nothing's free. ARPA's not free. All these federal and state grants, they're not free. All our taxpayers are paying for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any further public comment? Martha?
Hello. Martha Keneally, 12 Fairmont Street. I just want to thank you for all the work you're doing, and you'll continue to work, and thank the Board of Education for the hard work you've put in so far. I have to say, one of the things I really appreciated the most in the past few months is the meeting that the mayor and the Board of Ed chair held together, the community meeting in the library, where they invited folks in for a discussion. There were a number of people in the room there. Seeing the mayor and the Board of Ed chair sitting side by side, working collaboratively, understanding each other's point of view. They're both so knowledgeable about their own areas of expertise. So that was just, I think, a great, I'm going to say, change of tone from what we've seen before. I think it was a reset on the way that we're approaching the budget of the the way I see the budget being approached as being more collaborative. I really appreciate that. I don't think everyone's going to get everything that they want. I think everyone's going to be sharpening their pencils and looking at it, but the idea that you're working collaboratively in that process, I think, is something that the community wants to see. That's what, I think that's a tremendous effort, so I appreciate that. I'm at the point in my life now where we really aren't using a lot of the town services. Our children are in college, having come through Wethersfield Public Schools. I always think I'm going to go use the pool, but I don't. I sometimes go see a soccer game down the street, but we're not using the fields. We're not doing those things. But I fully support maintaining and improving our town services, our education system, and our library. At its most basic level, I know that the value of my home is dependent on how well those things are regarded by a potential home buyer. I'm not planning on going anywhere. We'd like to stay. We plan to stay, but I can see that, home values in Wethersfield are really skyrocketing, and having the reputation of our schools being good, those services, it's really important to people, as has been said, to young buyers as they come into our community. I also think that reputation lends itself to the vibrancy and the reputation of our community. We all say we want a Trader Joe's here, but without having that reputation of being a community that has great schools, great services, etc., businesses like that will go to the Glastonburys instead that have that. I think by those kinds of investments help us to attract great businesses. It's interesting, we are known statewide for the charm of old Wethersfield. There is no reason that we can't extend that's kind of our brand, that charm and that history. We can extend that charm and that great feel to Silas Deane Highway. That can be achieved through traffic calming on Silas Deane Highway. That can be achieved through redevelopment of Silas Deane Highway and our other commercial corridors. I'm very optimistic, actually, about the potential that exists there for redevelopment. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot that can be done. And so when we're talking about taxes, yeah, as I've heard people say, people pay taxes on an empty storefront. We can make a similar amount if it's full, if it's empty. It's when we can improve those businesses, when we get more high-value businesses into those storefronts, that we're going to see our tax dollars improving, and that's what we need to see. We need to continue that kind of investment in our infrastructure. I'm so excited that we have the economic development position now. I think it's going to continue to pay off, and it's something we just need to keep doubling down on, because that, I think, is the path forward. I also do think a lot about when people say what they can afford, and I guess I just want to maybe shine a light on a different side of that. And I'm coming from the perspective, I grew up in the home, single mom. We definitely lived paycheck to paycheck. We relied sometimes on what we called food stamps at the time. I know that's not what we call them anymore. And what my family would not have been able to afford is there being no, it would have, if there was no pool in our town, if our schools weren't good, if there weren't parks and rec services that I could go to. That's what there are people who can't afford for those things to go away. People need those in their lives because they're not going to be able to go to Pine Acres. They're not going to be able to go to a private school. They need those things to be great. And I think that that's something we have to think about, what people can afford in our community. And I also have to put in a pitch for anything we can do to create efficiencies. I do agree it's really important. And I will use the library as an example. The library is a great place where we see a lot of efficiencies. There are the system that we have, where we share books with other communities. As Polly pointed out before, we're voracious readers in this community, and we would never be able to buy or have the number of books we need. So we share with other communities the books, and if you ask for a book, it might be coming to you from West Hartford or from Glastonbury. Well, there's other ways we can do that. There's other efficiencies like that we can achieve with equipment that we use, or other services that we use in our community, or curriculum services, things like that. So I encourage the use of those kind of efficiencies, and I think one of the greatest efficiencies we can achieve is that RFID system, which I think would be a great investment. RFID, we all know how you can check a book out at the library. What they need is the system to check books back in. Brooke has done an amazing job of she will squeeze every bit she can out of every penny, but she's kind of created all the efficiencies she could. And so by having something like an RFID system, which would allow her to have librarians doing work that is, instead of just checking books in, they'd be being able to provide more services. It would allow her to create more efficiencies and save money in the end. It would pay for itself, and I would encourage it to be passed. So thank you very much. Thank you again for the work you're going to do. I know it's very time-consuming, and there's no easy answers, but we appreciate it.
Thank you, Martha. Further, Liz? Yep.
Hi, my name is Liz Walters. I live at 57 Randy Lane in town. I'm also a member of the Board of Education. And regarding the town budget, one thing I wanted to ask you to challenge yourselves with is looking at the addition of new positions, increases in salaries where we're not contractually bound to do so. This is a time where we're coming off of ARPA funds. Everything is changing, and this is not the time that I would see that would be ideal to be adding positions. I would challenge ourselves within the organizations, the leadership levels, to see what is the work that's being done and is it valuable. I don't think that we should be adding positions or looking to add just because we're so busy, because everyone is busy. I'm hoping that when you're looking at these positions, you're considering what is the work that I'm doing, is it value add, and where do I have the decision-making power to change that. In addition to that, the thing that concerns me the most about the budgets, both on the town side and the Board of Ed side, and I approve the Board of Ed budget because I think investing in our children is investing in our future. But on the heels of these discussions is the referendum. We know it's coming. We know the schools need work, whether we renovate, whether we build new, whatever we do. That is a huge chunk of money. And so I don't want us to be short-sighted thinking that we're worried about the increase for the taxes now, which I am worried about. However, on the heels of that, we're talking about a huge investment for our town. And if we expect our town people to be able to support that and get behind that, and I hope that we will be able to, we need to really challenge ourselves as to what we're asking them to do now. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Further public comment? I can't see, is that Chris? Oh.
Good evening, I'm Christopher Brecklin, 27 Somerset Street. I would just like to say how much I support the investment that this budget makes in our community. Deferred maintenance still costs money. In a lot of cases, it costs more money. One of the most concerning points in the town manager's budget message was how low our investment in capital improvements has been. We are an old town. I would say most people, I think, would agree we're the oldest town, but Windsor disagrees. So there's a lot that we need to do to invest in our town, in our buildings, in our services, and even the modest amount that is in this budget is so important for us to maintain. one of the problems when you kick the can down the road is that borrowing costs keep going up, and capital improvements are often funded through bond issuances, and interest rates, even now where they are still historically low. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that it costs more money if we wait to try to borrow that money in the future. I'm a new homeowner in town, and tax increases are scary. I don't have kids, but I still understand how important the quality of our schools and the services in our town are to the value of my home. A lot of folks have come up and mentioned how scary grocery prices are, and all kinds of costs are going up. Well, those costs are going up for our teachers and our civil servants too. And the investment that we make in the people who provide services in our town is also really important. I talk to a lot of teachers who are friends of mine, a lot of people who work in towns all across New England, and there's a shortage of teachers. There's a shortage of people who want to work in town government, and a lot of that's because it's hard to adjust to the cost of living because everybody wants to keep budgets flat. And I'm really proud that there's an investment in the people who provide services to our community in this budget, and I just think that that is something we need to focus on. As much as we think about that this is an investment. We're not just spending money, our taxes aren't just going up, it's going toward things that matter to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Further public comment? I don't see anybody else, so by rules, those of you who have spoken before are allowed to speak again for another 10-minute session. So I'm going to ask for a hands of people who have spoken before. If you spoke, please, for the record, state your name and address again, and you have a maximum of 10 minutes.
Okay, because I'm a teacher, I can speak really fast. I don't need the full 10 minutes. I moved here from California, and I get tons of questions of why here? Because of Wethersfield, not because of Connecticut. And yes, the raise in taxes is going to hurt me. But if you think Hartford's better, you should go live there, or better yet, visit a school there.
Melinda, excuse me, please address your comments to
sorry. So in Hartford, where taxes are possibly lower, what I saw working there was I was threatened physically by students because they haven't had a single teacher there the entire school year. And this isn't one class, this is several classes in Hartford. Now, the bad news for me, I can't find anybody who wants to leave Wethersfield in education. So I haven't been able to work in Wethersfield. But working in Hartford tells me, yes, you need to keep investing in education more now than ever before because of the things that people have said. Prices are going up, inflation is going up. So wait, you want the teachers now to buy the copier paper? Because that's what's happening if we want to use paper. Books, we have to rely on the public libraries, not the school libraries, because there isn't the money. So, yes, Department of Education does need to look at where they can maybe cut costs, but where they can't is on supplies for students, supplies for teachers, and more importantly, teachers. So I just wanted to share that. You guys have a great town. That's why I moved here. My daughter lives here. She's the one who convinced me this is where you want to be. So I'm okay with investing, even though I'm going to have to go work in Hartford to pay it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Further public comment? Going once. Liz?
Liz Walters, 57 Randy Lane, Wethersfield. I just want to stress again that we have a referendum coming on the heels of this budget, and I hope that everyone considers that when they're putting together the budget and making approvals, because we do need to help our schools, and we need to be able to set our citizens up, our residents up, to be able to pay for the renovations to help to support those schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Further public comment? Going once? Going twice? Mr. Young, yep.
Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. As I looked at the town council's budget, I noticed you have a new section in there called B. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says increased attendance at at events coupled with necessary or increased security measures have resulted in cost increase that sponsor organizations have difficulty covering, and it goes on. I take it that's why we have an officer in here. Is that the security piece? Is that part of this? I also notice on the second page, C-E, I have to bring it up though so I can read. It says under professional services, $55,000. It says safe graduation, $250. Greater Hartford Transit District, $5,187. And public event support, $50,000. This is brand new, Mayor. This must be one of your new initiatives. But you know what? I don't know what the Hartford Transit thing is all about. It used to only be safe graduation, but you added in the Greater Hartford Transit District for $5,187. And you also added in public event support of $50,000. What's that all about? That should be stricken from this budget, of all things, until it's explained. But from what I did read, the public event support, it would be taking care of others, in my opinion. This is like Joe Biden was giving student loan relief to borrowers. It runs right in the same vein, where you would take this money and use it to do what you want with it. I think it should be struck from this budget, especially that $50,000. I don't know what the Greater Hartford Transit District thing is and why it's in here. Are they going to be trucking you folks around? Next. Yeah. We have the general fund town manager. We have employee recognition, employee recognition luncheon and awards, $5,000. I mean, is this new too? I know you got $13,000 put into the budget for it. I think that's something that is new. Anything else new that we should know about? We have the town attorney. We need to have town attorneys, right? That we need to, so they can handle the items that our town council fears to be responsible for. And also, we need town attorneys to apply tax liens on our citizens. Great job for those people. $150,000. That should be stricken. Like I said, I look at this in a detailed way, not like the superintendent or the manager did, glossy over on extremely high levels. So it'll take me a while, okay? Information systems. We have new website implementation for $36,000. I mean, I thought our website was pretty good. But what's going on here? And then there's an annual host support for another $7,000. That should be taken out of this budget. And that's on page C24. We have elections, and I know it was mentioned tonight about elections as an added cost, having an added cost. And it says in here that the state provided $10,500 to offset some of the cost to early voting. Yet our cost went from actuals, well, let's go back to actuals of last year of 130,000, we then went up to 170,000. That must be for all that early voting business. And now they're having to budget $283,000. Mayor, this is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous, and all the state is going to give you is $10,500? Did you question them when they were proposing this? How much is the town going to carry? I mean, I go and vote. I jump in my car and go and vote. Why don't others? They got to have something mailed to them, which costs now 60, 70 cents each. And then they have to send it back to you, and you probably put the stamp on too, to make sure they send it back. I mean, this is a rip-off to the public. It went up 65.84%. This particular elections, that category. Probate court. It was currently at 19,000. Then it went up to 32,000. Now it's up to 34,000. If anybody went to probate court, they pay plenty. They pay plenty when they go in there for all the fees that they have. We shouldn't be giving them anything. That should be stricken. Finance and accounting. Here we go. More new initiatives. New initiatives. Munis, implementation, paperless time, and attendance. $25,000. Do something for that. Munis, some kind of an attendance, something or other for $15,000. That's $40,000 extra. And our manager didn't talk about any of this when he talked about the budget. How about paper cartridges? I mean, look at all the costs that we have in here. It's incredible. And nobody talks about it.
1 more minute.
And the value, I'm sorry?
You have 1 more minute, please.
1 more?
Yes, on time.
And the value of and the average gross assessment for a residential property is $166,060. That's incredible. We've gone down in our assessed value on our grand list. Incredible, and we keep spending more. You know how it is, Mayor, you're supposed to be the board of directors. You should all of them should be fired. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Going once? Going twice? Anybody? I'll entertain a motion from the council.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
He is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.